Can I use your hairbrush, Tom? Yeah, go ahead. Tom, why couldn't you have talked and told me that like 10 seconds ago? You're always on that thing. You never talk with anyone using audible speech, and it's always using your phone. You probably don't ever use your brain communicating through that thing. Fine. To be clear, I'm going to call my form of communication verbal communication. And in terms of brain activity, I'm going to research what parts of the brain are activated in the production and reception of audible speech. I think we should also research attachment between individuals participating in conversation for our particular form of communication to see which form of communication produces more attachment, if any. Attachment is an important factor of communication. I'll go first. I hope we both use credible sources for our research. I researched about verbal communication and what parts of the brain are activated in the production and reception of audible speech. A review from the scientific journal Neuroimage, published in 2012 by Elsevier, finds that the left hemisphere of the brain is involved in verbal communication. Another study from the scientific journal Brain, published in 2005, also confirms that the left hemisphere is involved in verbal communication. Specifically finding here, through a series of scans that they conducted on humans' brains and their participants, that comprehension of sentences activated the left hemisphere of the brain. Furthermore, the Barrow Neurological Institute put forth a detailed diagram of what parts of the brain are activated in verbal speech, and along with the Mayfield Clinic's detailed anatomy of the brain, I found the specific areas. The frontal lobe is responsible for formulating thoughts and for producing sound through the Broca's area. The temporal lobe is essential for hearing through the auditory cortex, and for understanding language through Wernicke's area. The parietal lobe interprets all the information. In terms of attachment, a study done by the University of Texas at Austin in 2020 found that phone calls created more attachment than texting. Another study published by Psych Open in 2014 found that humans' brains are more sensitive to sounds made by humans than any other sounds, indicating humans were designed to speak to each other. Furthermore, a study published by the Norwegian University of Science and Technology found that brain cells adjust to the same frequency between individuals, connecting with each other. This is no less true of speech. That's my research. Your turn, Tom. Okay, let's see. You researched about nonverbal communication and what parts of the brain are activated when formulating and comprehending text messages. You found that both hemispheres of the brain are activated in nonverbal speech, referencing a review published in 2020 from the National Center for Biotechnology Information that indicates vision and visual processing is done in both hemispheres of the brain. You also referenced the same review and study I did, the 2012 review from the scientific journal Neuroimage, published by Elsevier, which finds the left hemisphere to be involved in verbal and nonverbal communication. And the 2005 study from the scientific journal Brain, which also confirms that the left hemisphere is involved in nonverbal speech, specifically, as we said, in terms of comprehension of sentences. You also used a diagram detailing the parts of the brain from the Barrow Neurological Institute, the Mayfield Clinic's detailed anatomy of the brain, and the 2020 review from the National Center for Biotechnology Information to find the specific parts of the brain activated in nonverbal speech. The results are as follows. The frontal lobe is responsible for formulating thoughts for a text. The occipital lobe is essential for vision and visual processing of the text. The temporal lobe is responsible for understanding the written text through Wernicke's area. The parietal lobe interprets all the information. In terms of attachment, you found no studies supporting the idea of attachment through nonverbal communication, but referenced a study I did published in 2020 from the University of Texas at Austin, saying that although people thought there would be more attachment to nonverbal communication, this was not a case, and you agree that verbal communication is best for attachment. What? The brain is actually activated in nonverbal communication? I think Billy and I are able to conclude this argument. Isn't that right, Billy? In terms of our specific research for verbal and nonverbal communication, more lobes are activated in nonverbal speech than verbal. However, in a typical setting, since we would be doing more things than the definitions allow, like moving our fingers for texting or moving our arms for hand gestures, both sides of the brain would be activated in a typical setting for each form of communication. In terms of brain activation, neither form of communication produces significantly more brain activation than the other. The specific parts activated in each lobe are about equal for verbal and nonverbal communication. The review we both cited earlier from Neuroimage, published in 2012 by Elsevier, verifies this by providing a scan of the specific areas activated in each lobe for both forms of communication. So it may be a good idea to use both verbal and nonverbal communication to maximize full potential brain activation, which is why Billy has now gone to nonverbal communication and myself to verbal. In terms of attachment, studies seem to point in one sole direction, finding that verbal communication is better for attachment between individuals than nonverbal communication. Our research indicated that this is due to the fact that our bodies respond in a special way to other humans when they are physically present, as opposed to them not being present. You know, Billy, you should have never asked me for that hairbrush in the first place. Look at all the research we had to go through just to arrive on an answer. I mean, did you even need the hairbrush in the first place? You always wear that do-rag and never take it off. What were you going to comb, the do-rag? Anyways, it can't be good to wear that thing 24/7. No way. I'm done researching for one day.